Hi there, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and are you wondering what the difference between a PhD and an EDD is? Or are you thinking about pursuing a doctoral program and you're not sure which one to pursue? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the differences and which one you should go for and which one might suit your needs best. Let's get started. All right, so we have a lot of educational leaders who watch this YouTube channel, and some of you are teachers thinking about pursuing advanced degrees. Now, my very first instinct when somebody says, I want to pursue an advanced degree, is do it. Go for it. Pursue that advanced degree, whether it's a master's or a doctorate. Do it. If you're thinking about it, it is an amazing experience. Now, I will say it also comes with a little bit of a pay raise. If you get your master's or your doctorate, you usually will receive some sort of a pay raise because the state usually rewards people for that. Not all the time, and it's usually not a ton of money, but there is some extra money. It kind of puts you at a different level in terms of the pay scale and whatnot. But if you're someone who wants to be a principal or an assistant principal or a superintendent or a director or any other kind of leadership role, it does pay to have either a PhD or an EDD. Now, let's first talk about the differences between a PhD and an EDD. Now, the PhD is designed for those seeking educational work in universities and in research. Now, that doesn't mean that if you get a PhD, you can't then become a principal or a director or a superintendent or anything like that. But the way the PhD programs are run are really for people who are pursuing academia and to become professors, in the College of Education. Let's just say we're doing our PhD in educational leadership or curriculum or something like that. And then go on to teach at that high level and also continue to do research. The thing is with a PhD, when working in academia, meaning at the university level, you are required to publish on a regular basis. And that's kind of just to keep your credentials, current. It's important that you continue your research, especially if you're teaching at the university. Now, an EDD is for someone who is going to get their doctorate in educational leadership, curriculum, whatever, but then that person goes out into the field of education and works in a school, at a district, or even at the state level. So the EDD is more designed for a practitioner type job. Now, let me be clear. Both the PhD and the EDD are very difficult degrees to get. Some people kind of poo-poo the EDD because they think it isn't as sophisticated as a PhD, and I am here to tell you that that is not true. I myself got an EDD, but the research that I did and the dissertation that I built was in collaboration with professors who got their start at R1 universities. Now, R1 universities means Research 1 universities. These are the type of universities that are doing all that crazy kind of research with stats and just lots of things that most people don't understand. And my dissertation chair and my dissertation committee were all from R1 universities. So if anybody tells you that a PhD is better than an EDD, they don't really know what they're talking about. Now, different programs require different things, but one of the things that separates, kind of those from master's programs and specialist programs to the doctoral program is that dissertation. And in any reputable PhD or EDD program, you are required to write a dissertation. It is the big project by the end of the year. Now, I'll do future videos on this because I did write a dissertation and I do have a process by which you could follow to do that. But for now, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what getting an EDD or a PhD entails and, whether or not you should pursue it. First of all, it is a life-changing event. You are dedicated to your studies and your research when you are pursuing these degrees. Now, most of us are working full-time as well, and if you're already in a leadership position, that means you now have zero time for anything else because your job was already demanding, and now you have a very demanding schedule for your leadership degree. Now, a doctoral program will typically take you anywhere from 54 to 69 credit hours. And typically, a chunk of those credit hours are dedicated to the dissertation phase. However, the beginning stages of your doctoral program will be a lot of coursework. Remember, this is a doctorate. This is not an undergraduate degree. It's not even a master's degree. This is where the top of the top go to get their credentials. So it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of research, a ton of reading, and a lot of dedication to your studies. That being said, it is totally possible. And if you're someone who has a dream of becoming, Dr. So-and-so, because you want to further help people in your industry, this is something you should definitely pursue. I'll talk a little bit about my personal experience, and maybe then you can apply that. So I started off with my undergraduate degree from Florida State University. I was just an undergraduate, doing my thing. And I got an English degree because I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Turns out that didn't happen. And I became a bartender for many years after college. But I did have my undergraduate in English with a focus on writing. And so I tended bar for many years after that, probably 5 years, and then decided to get into teaching. I became a substitute teacher, really loved it, but then I decided to get my master's in public administration. Now, the public administration degree that I got is typically for those people who want to go into government jobs, into Congress, things like that. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I was just kind of substitute teaching on the side as getting into the workforce and things like that. Well, I continued my degree in public administration, but it didn't do much for me in terms of advancing my career in education. And later I decided I wanted to stay in education, and I did want to become an assistant principal. So what I did then, in order to get the credential necessary in my state, I got an education specialist degree. And a specialist degree is kind of in between a master's and a doctorate. And this was basically, in my state and district, a bridge that gave me that credential that I needed. So I had the master's in public administration. It really prepared me for the writing and the research that was going to happen later on in my other graduate degrees, but it wasn't going to give me any advancement in jobs because in the state of Florida, you need a state credentialed educational leadership program. So even though I had a master's in administration, I couldn't be an administrator in the schools. It's just one of those formalities. So I got a specialist degree, which I said, again, is that bridge. And that's the letters for that is an EDS, Education Specialist. And so that was fine. I was able to get a job as an assistant principal by then. I was working. And then for me, I really wanted to go all the way. I wanted to have the doctorate. My mother had her doctorate. She got hers when she was 50. And I thought, I really want to kind of carry that on. And I wanted to do it too. I am a person who loves academia. I love being in a college classroom. I love lectures and things like that. I'm kind of a weirdo in that sense. And so I wanted to pursue that doctorate. And so I talked it over with my husband, and he was like, more debt. But I found a way to do the doctorate on the cheap. There were some programs and things like that I could apply for, some tuition waivers and things like that. I highly recommend you look into those. And I was able to start my doctoral program. Now, there were a bunch of prerequisites you needed to get in my particular program. I got mine from Florida Gulf Coast University, letters of recommendation, obviously transcripts, things like that. And once I was admitted, we started the doctoral program. Now, this was really difficult because you feel very out of place because you are new and you're thinking to yourself, what did I get myself into? They start breaking down all the credit hours, all the classes, and you're just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this, right? But the thing is, you can get your doctorate the way my mother says. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so incrementally over the next 5 years, I got my doctorate. I chose the EDD because I knew I wanted to go back into schools, into the district, and be a practitioner. Now, if I wanted to go into academia and become an instructor at the college level, I probably would have gone the Ph.D. route. So those are the differences, and that was my experience there. So I do have the EDD, and I'm very happy I did it. Now, one thing that this credential does for you is that it kind of gives you the respect that is needed when you're working in academia. Now, in business, because now I'm in business, not in academia, nobody cares what degrees you have. There are plenty of people without any degrees making millions of dollars, and they are fine. But in academia, having the doctorate next to your name is pretty helpful, especially when you're trying to score meetings with, deans and presidents of universities and things like that. And it's been very beneficial in my company because it helps me get meetings with those people who then may buy my products and things like that. So I'm still connected to academia in that sense. And if I ever wanted to go back and teach at the college level, now I have an EDD, a doctorate, and I can do that, especially in the College of Education. Now, one thing I will say is the workload is immense, and it's very difficult to find the time and just make time for yourself also. At the time, I had a daughter, a brand new daughter. She was only, I think, 2 or 3 when I started the doctoral program, and I had the job as an assistant principal. But I made time. I also worked my job into it, meaning I figured out things within the job I wanted to study more of, and I kind of brought that into my program. I wrote papers and I wrote research about the things that, interested me based on what I was doing in my job. So that was very, very helpful. So I highly recommend this course of action if you are someone who wants to take it to the next level. It certainly opens doors, and it certainly helps you to move forward in your career. But beyond that, for me, it was more personal. I wanted to reach the pinnacle of, education. I wanted to go all the way. And I will tell you, the day that I defended my dissertation and the day that I was given that diploma, that doctorate, I just couldn't believe it. It was like one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. Of course, I've had a child, I've been married, and I've had all kinds of jobs and things like that. But achieving that pinnacle was such an amazing experience. Now, in the weeds, when you're 2 years in, you're having feelings like, why did I do this? Why did I sign up for this? I don't think I should go on. And most people quit. Most people quit before the dissertation is done, or they start the dissertation, become so overwhelmed by that process, and then they quit. So I would say really take an inward look at yourself and decide, am I doing this for somebody else? Am I doing this for ulterior motives? Or am I doing this because I want this credential for myself? I think that's the most important thing. I want it for myself. I want to accomplish something. Beyond that is the monetary payback if you go back into the school system. Now, I will say if you're planning on teaching at the college level with a Ph.D., you do not get paid much. I know many PhDs who are only making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. So even though the work is rewarding, I love teaching at the college level. I used to a while ago. It's a great job. The pay isn't always there, but the job is really nice. So those are some things to think about. I always say too, that if you're going to get an advanced degree, you need to think about the payoff or the ROI, the return on investment. Now, if the return on investment for you is reaching that pinnacle and having that credential, then that's enough. But if you're someone who is expecting to make, tons and tons of money after you get the PhD or the EDD, that may not happen right away. So the return on investment might be delayed. But I highly recommend going for your doctorate. I think it's one of the greatest things I ever did with my life, and it has just made me feel good about my work. And I know by doing that, I can pretty much do anything, because if you can write a dissertation, if you can survive 5 years in a doctoral program, defend your dissertation in front of a bunch of R1 university professors, you can pretty much do anything. It really helps to boost that confidence. And then finally, one more thing I'd like to say. When you get the EDD, it's really fun because now you're Dr. Jasper or Dr. Smith and those types of things. And what will often happen is people will lead with that doctor, right? They'll introduce themselves as Dr. Jasper, or they'll be sure to sign their name, Dr. this, or on their Facebook page, it's Dr., whatever. I would say that be careful leading with that. My mother told me when I got the doctorate, I asked her, I said, so now do people have to call me doctor? And it's kind of an ego thing. And she said something that was really telling, and I'll never forget it. She said a lot of things to me that I'll never forget, but she said, you will not have to tell people to call you Dr. Jasper. They will call you that when they respect you and understand that you've earned that credential. And so I would say, rather than throwing it out there like, I'm a doctor now, you have to call me Dr. Jasper, just do the work and keep moving forward and work hard on helping people. And when you gain that respect, people will automatically call you doctor and you won't have to lead with it. So that is my little synopsis between a PhD and an EDD. I hope you go for it if it's a dream that you have. Don't wait, do it now. If you wait till the perfect time, it's never going to happen. If you wait until your kids are in college, it's never going to happen. There's never a right time to go for a PhD, just like there's never the right time to have a child, right? You just got to do it and just do your best. And that's the way it is. So I hope this helps you today. I am going to do some more videos on the dissertation process and the EDD/PhD process. If that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments, and I'd love to do more videos on that. And any kind of specific questions you might have regarding this, I'd be happy to answer. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much for watching. We have a ton of videos on my YouTube channel. Please consider subscribing and following me on my social media networks at Kathleen Jasper. Have a great day.